Private equity firms face many challenges when trying to obtain talent, both for the firm and also the portfolio companies. One of those particular challenges that firms are facing at the moment, we're getting a lot of feedback from, is that the typical, as regarding the industry, as Shrek firms are underperforming in the lower and middle market areas. So firms like Egon Zehnder, Spencer Stuart, Heidrick & Struggles, Russell Reynolds, and Korn Ferry make up the Shrek and well-regarded private equity search firms, or at least within their divisions of executive search. Typically, these firms will work on a huge amount of opportunities and a huge amount of roles because of the brand and recognition that they have in the market. They typically offer a terms and conditions structure, which has a very large upfront deposit, which is then on a third basis. And the resounding feedback that we tend to be hearing at the moment is that they maybe don't prioritize the low middle market sector, and they want to play in the large cap. They want the Carlyles, the Warburgs, and the big private equity firm business, because obviously salaries are inflated and therefore their fees and what they charge will be increased. And like anything, money talks, and if you play in that world, that's where you're going to put a lot of emphasis, and therefore the low middle market private equity firms get somewhat neglected. So what's the answer? Of course, I would say that smaller executive search firms, the term boutique is well overused and basically means small firm, but the firms that are specialists within the private equity space that don't have the 200, 300, 500 type headcount or whatever the Shrek firms have within their industry, that I would argue take a more targeted approach to their outreach, that have more intricate knowledge of the lower middle market space, and that don't have the relationships with guys like Warburg and Carlyle Group, etc., as the big firms, and therefore what I would position as work for their money and do what they say they're going to do and prioritize the relationships they have with the lower middle market private equity firms, because that's their bread and butter. Another benefit of the smaller executive search firms, especially when they're niche and specialist, is that that's all that they play in, and therefore all of their reinvestment of in essence, profits from the firm go back into, or should, go back into the business of developing the data, developing the contacts, and obviously developing the brand and awareness, which of course works from a client attraction perspective, but also for attracting new individuals and new candidates into the funnel and obviously the application process for your particular search need, whether that be in the portfolio or of course the private equity firm itself. For example, Role Selection has a unique 15-step process of how we fulfill every single search process to identify the best possible talent within the private equity or portfolio search. Of course, utilize all the different products and software and tools that any other search firm should, I hope, be using, but also the nuances of the proprietary data that we've built, of mapping out, I would argue and hope that we've got 100%, but that's unlikely. I say 80 to 90% of all US-based private equity firms, and also the same in Europe, to then know all of the people that work in those firms, but also their portfolio companies and building out that data, which is fairly unique. You can use things like Grata, who's a sponsor of the Private Equity Podcast, and then PitchBook and various other merger, which we also use, offer these data points, but usually they're out of date. Usually they don't have the right talent individuals in the actual private equity firms or the portfolio companies, or it's not conclusive. So therefore, that proprietary level of data being built, you could argue that your big executive search firms could do this, but I'd argue differently to say that why haven't they? Why haven't they got proprietary data that's not built from LinkedIn, which is particularly archaic and out of date itself, but actually using press releases, web scrapers, and obviously companies' websites to build that data and then feed that all into your CRM, which again, if the firm's particularly specialist and niche, then they'll be able to do this. But if you're a big executive search firm with thousands and thousands of different industries and sectors, it's going to be difficult to build that type of area across so many different industries, with one of which is only the private equity industry, but also all of the publicly listed, privately owned businesses that they work with and all their particular niches that they operate through. In order to cover off the extortionate upfront payment and then the middle payment and then the end payment, regardless of whether they deliver, I don't agree with that model. So what Role Selection has positioned to the marketplace is we take a small upfront deposit, and the remainder of that is on the completion of the project, which I believe is fair. And it's a fair way of running, it's a fair way of operating, and it takes the emphasis away from the executive search firms that reach out and go, look, the reason we've not filled this role is because the job title's not right, the salary's not high enough, the location's poor, which are all challenges we of course face when running a search process. But it's not just putting and laying the blame on you. It's not sat on somebody's desk for 3 weeks and then suddenly it erupts into action and then someone's trying to scramble around to try and find a shortlist from the CRM that they should have done on day one. It's making sure that we're accountable to delivering the search and delivering the service that we promised. And then we also couple that with a upfront deposit guarantee. So if you're not happy with our service for any reason, then you reach out to me and that money will be refunded to you in full. The reason that we offer this is because we always deliver. And secondly, we've never had a client ask for this money back. Because although we've done some of the most difficult and challenging searches and we've worked on processes where the SREC firms I've just mentioned, without mentioning particular names, have run processes for, I'm currently working on a search that's been run for 3 years, a previous search that we did in the Nordics that's been run for 1 year, and either haven't come up with the right type of talent or haven't come up with any candidates during that process. And we're able to deliver in short time periods. The previous one was 2 weeks in the Nordics that we delivered on investment director position that one of the SREC firms had been working on for a year. And then another example is a search that was also run by one of the SREC firms that's been ongoing, I think, for nearly 3 years. And we have a short list of profiles that are currently going through interview process that was all delivered within 4 weeks. So that kind of level of service and that kind of emphasis on us, as well as you being able to deliver the project, is not all just on you. And that's why we have the tagline of de-risking executive search, because we take the risk away from you, put the onus on us to do what we promise that we're going to do. That's why I believe firms like Blackford Capital, Drum Capital, Middle Ground Capital work, and many others in the US and Europe work with Raw Selection and choose Raw Selection when we're a UK-based firm and we do so much work in the US and across Europe, when realistically we shouldn't be. We should be working with firms in London or in Leeds, where we're based out of. But we have such a good process, such a good reputation, and I believe a very good initial offering for any client to come and work with us. That's why they choose to work with us and work with Raw Selection over the SREC firms and other organisations in the exec search world. So should you be looking for a new supplier to support you and partner with you to secure talent, either within the private equity firm, either investment deal team or back office profiles, and of course, portfolio executives in the C-suite nature, please reach out to us at Raw Selection. I'll be delighted to tell you more about how we work, how we operate, and how we protect our clients to ensure that we deliver and you don't get blamed for our underperformance.